Okay, so the first technique we're going to do is going to be the barnwood technique. You're going to need your paintbrush, your paint palette, and you're going to need 3 paint colors. So I use black. You only need a little bit. And this is like a light brown. See, it's a creamy brown. And then this is antique white. Okay. So the trick to this technique is these chip brushes. So you see how they're like, it's not flush, it goes up and down. So we're gonna use that raggedy pattern to create our barnwood effect. So the best way to do this is you wanna start with a dark color, and I hope you can see this, but you're just barely gonna put the tips of your paintbrush in that paint. Okay, because if you put too much paint on there, the effect doesn't work that well. Okay, if you think you got too much paint on there, dab it off. Okay, because you only want a little bit. Now, what you want to do is you just want to barely hover this paintbrush over the board like that. So you see how I'm just barely touching it and going back and forth. Okay. Now, once the paint begins to run out in the brush and it's not coming off anymore, then that's when we do the dry brush, just like this. Okay, so that is the dry brush technique. So I'm going to grab a little bit more paint, being very careful only to get it on the tips of my brush. And again, I'm going to hover it across. Just putting out a little bit of paint. Okay, and now that my paint is running out, I'm going to dry brush it. Going to grab a little bit more. And you do this until you're content. You can do as many or as little as you like. And then dry brush. So the whole idea, and you don't want to get, see how that paintbrush is pretty much empty? If you load that paintbrush up too much, you don't get the technique. So I'm just sticking the tips of this brush in that paint, and then I'm hovering. And I'm going to keep on adding paint until I think I have enough. Dry brushing is the key. That's what makes it look like barnwood, is the dry brushing. Okay, so I'm just going to keep on going until I'm happy. A lot of these techniques, the more paint that you put on, the better it looks. Now see, if you're not grabbing enough, it's not going to do anything. But even still, I'm only barely touching the tips in this paint. And that's the key to this technique with all the colors that you're going to use. Is to barely put any paint on the tip of that brush. It's this brush that helps us with this technique. So a little bit on the tips. Dry brush it. See how once I dry brush it automatically looks old? I just love that. And if you get too much paint, don't worry. It's okay, because barnwood has no real pattern. Okay, just like so. Now, we're not even going to wash our brush. We're going to go to the light brown color, and we're going to do the exact same technique where we're just putting the tips of our brush in there and we're hovering it across the board. Now, this is when the magic starts happening, y'all. This is when you're going to be like, oh, man. So get the tips and hover. Just hover. And if you get too much paint and you're not hovering very well, just get a paper towel and wipe the paint out and start again. because you definitely don't want big gulps of paint on there to get this effect. And with each layer that, see, I did a little bit too much right there, but it don't matter. See? Once I start dry brushing, it just looks like old wood. It's always best to do less and build the paint up, kind of like makeup, you know, just build it up. Because your next color after this is going to be white, the antique white. But to me, the more that you're doing this, the more it looks like barnwood. I just love this. So let's just say you get too much on there. Let me get too much on there. So watch. It just dry brush it. If you get too much, just dry brush it. It doesn't look bad. Dry brushing is the key to all this. So you're just gonna hover it. Well, if you get some paint on the brush, hover it and dry brush. So see, even if you have a little bit too much, it still looks good. See how that white and that black is starting to pull in grays? Just, it's awesome. I love it. Because you do see a lot of grays in barnwood. Don't be scary, ladies. Just put that paint on the board. You can't take paint away, but you can add more paint to it. Okay. Let me dry brush over here. Now we're going to go to the antique white. I'm going to hover, and dry brush. Are y'all seeing how this is starting to come together? And I'm putting a little bit more white on there. And then dry brushing it. The more layers we get on there, the more it looks like barnwood. I hope it's really starting to come together in the camera, because I love it. Now, let's say you're like, oh, that's too much white. I don't like that much white. It's okay. There is no particular order. Go back to the black and put some more black down, and it'll start darkening it back up again. Just like so. Because the more you do this in layers, to me, the better it looks like barnwood. Go back to the white. You just keep doing this until you like it, because that's what's important. Is if I feel like I don't have anything down here at the bottom, y'all, so I'm trying to get some down here. Is if you like it, not anybody else but you. And so at this stage, I just start alternating the colors just to see which one I like. And I just keep kind of adding the layers, because the more layers there is, to me, the better it looks. Now, another thing that you can do is add gray and brown. I got a little bit of brown over here. So let's just say it's just, you don't like it. It's just all munked up. So, I'm going to get a little bit of brown and bring that back in. So if like you think you got carried away, this brown will bring things back. Which I don't think you can ever get carried away, but that's just my opinion. Let's do some more white. See how the more layers I add, the better it's looking. It's just, you play with it till you love it. That's the rule. That's the golden rule. Just play with it until you love it. Because I'm really starting to love it. Okay, I'm going to stand up to look at it. I think I need some of this over here. And some of this over here. So, but the more you add and the more you play with it, the better it looks. Okay, I think I'm about done with this one. But you do you. You do you. Just like you want it done.